Asterisk, the Western Plains had a way of swallowing people whole, not with violence always, but with silence. Miles of dry grass rolled beneath an endless sky, and the wind carried stories no one bothered to listen to anymore. By the time the sun leaned low and turned the land the color of old gold, the settlement of Willow Creek looked less like a town and more like something the earth had forgotten it ever grew. A handful of wooden buildings leaned into one another for support, their paint bleached pale by years of dust and heat. The saloon doors creaked even when no one touched them. Hope lived here once, people said, but hope was a thing that moved on quickly in the West. On the evening Elijah Greyhawk rode into town, even the wind seemed to pause, as if the land itself sensed that something long overdue had finally arrived. Asterisk, Elijah did not ride fast. He never did. His horse moved with steady purpose, hooves striking the ground in a rhythm that spoke of distance traveled and battles endured. Dust clung to his coat, stitched and restitched by hands that had learned patience the hard way. His skin was darkened by sun and years, his face carved by quiet endurance rather than rage. Long black hair fell in a single braid down his back, bound with worn leather instead of ornament. He did not carry the look of a man seeking trouble, but neither did he carry the softness of someone who would flee from it. His eyes, dark and watchful, took in Willow Creek without judgment, as if he had seen places far worse and far kinder, and knew better than to expect either from strangers. Asterisk, people noticed him immediately. They always did. Asterisk, a native man riding alone into a white settlement was never invisible, not even in a town that pretended not to care anymore. Conversations thinned. A few men straightened where they leaned. A woman pulled her child a little closer. Elijah felt their eyes on him, the same way he had felt them his entire life, measuring, fearing, dismissing. He ignored it. He had not come for their approval. Asterisk, he tied his horse outside the general store and stood for a moment, boots planted in the dirt, breathing in the smell of dry wood and distant smoke. This place was not kind, but it was quiet. Quiet mattered. Quiet meant no soldiers. Quiet meant no fences yet. Quiet meant land that had not finished choosing who it belonged to. Asterisk. Elijah had spent years drifting between places that refused to claim him and people who refused to see him. He had learned long ago that survival was easier, alone, but building a future was not. Winters were cruel to solitary men. Injury was a death sentence without help. And a home, a real home, could not be built by hands alone forever. He did not seek romance. He did not seek rescue. What he sought was partnership, a woman willing to share work, silence, danger, and the long, slow process of turning raw land into something that could shelter a soul. That was why he was here. Word traveled fast in small towns with little to do. By the time Elijah stepped into the general store, the shopkeeper had already stiffened, already decided what kind of man stood before him. Elijah paid for supplies without haggling, nodded once, and left. He did not rise to tension. He never had. That unnerved people more than anger ever could. Asterisk, by nightfall, whispers moved from porch to porch. Asterisk, a native man's looking for a wife. Asterisk, they say he's got land. Asterisk, far west. No neighbors. Asterisk, dangerous, I heard. Asterisk, or desperate. Asterisk, Elijah spent the night at the edge of town, beneath the stars, the way he always did when walls felt too close. He slept lightly, dreams filled with old voices and older losses. When dawn came, it brought movement. Doors opened. Men looked at him with calculation. Women looked at him with curiosity, fear, or ambition. In a place where choices were few, and futures narrower still, a man offering land in land became something worth considering, even if he was not the kind of man mothers warned daughters to dream about. That was how the Carter house entered the story. The Carter house sat just beyond the main cluster of buildings, close enough to town to be claimed by it, far enough to be neglected. It leaned slightly to the east, its porch boards warped and softened by time. Inside lived Mrs. Carter and her two daughters, though most people only remembered one of them. Mary Carter had been noticed since the day she learned to walk. Golden-haired, blue-eyed, her beauty was the kind that softened men and sharpened envy in women. People spoke her name easily, with warmth. They said things like, "She'll marry well, and she won't be here long." The world had made space for Mary without her ever having to ask. Anna Carter lived in the same house, and somehow did not. She moved through rooms quietly, like someone borrowing space that did not belong to her. Brown hair usually braided back. Dresses mended too many times to count. Hands roughened by work she was never thanked for. Anna cooked, cleaned, fetched water, and listened. She learned early that silence made people forget you were there, and that forgetting could be safer than being in the way. When whispers reached the Carter house, it was Mary who lifted her head. Said a man seeking a wife. She said, eyes bright with curiosity. Mrs. Carter's worry flickered, then settled. A man with land could mean security. It could mean one less mouth to feed. It could mean salvation disguised as sacrifice. Anna stood near the stove, stirring a pot, listening. She did not look up. She had learned better. When Elijah arrived at the Carter house later that afternoon, the sun slanted through the porch railings, striping the floor with light. Mrs. Carter greeted him with practiced politeness. Mary stood behind her, smiling gently, already arranging herself into the kind of posture that made men believe in easy futures. Anna stayed near the doorway. Elisha noticed her. Immediately, not because she was loud, not because she was beautiful, but because she was still. Her eyes followed everything without demanding attention. She looked like someone who had learned to survive without being chosen, and that told Elijah more about her strength than any practiced smile ever could. He spoke plainly. No promises of riches, no false charm. I have land west of Black Ridge, he said. I offer a life built by work. I ask for a woman willing to stand beside me. Mary's smile faltered. Reality crept in where romance had been expected. West of Black Ridge meant isolation, hard winters, no neighbors close enough to help, no dancers, no easy admiration. Fear moved through Mary's expression before she could stop it. She glanced at her mother, at the walls, at the life she knew. Then, in a voice edged with desperation masked as kindness, she spoke the words that would carve the rest of their lives apart. Please, take my sister instead. The room fell silent. Anna froze. For a heartbeat. She thought she had imagined it. Then she felt the weight of the words settle onto her shoulders like a burden she had been carrying all her life without knowing it. Had a name? Elijah turned slowly. He looked at Mary and saw what she tried to hide: fear of a future that would not bend itself around her. Then he looked at Anna, and Anna, for the first time in her life, did not look away. Her eyes were steady, not pleading, not hopeful, just honest. Asterisk, you don't have to, she said quietly. I won't shame you if you leave. Asterisk, something shifted in Elijah, then something deep, something old. The wind moved again outside, and the forgotten girl was finally, undeniably seen. No one celebrated the decision. There was no laughter in Willow Creek when word spread that Elijah Greyhawk had chosen the quiet sister instead of the golden one. If anything, the town seemed unsettled, as if something unnatural had occurred. Like a rule had been broken that no one had ever written down, but everyone silently obeyed. Anna Carter had not been meant for choosing. She had been meant for waiting, for watching others leave, for staying behind to sweep empty rooms and carry water for lives that mattered more than her own. When Elijah made his decision final, when he stood in the Carter house and said her name with calm certainty, it felt to many like a mistake that time would soon correct. Asterisk, Anna felt it differently. She felt as though the ground beneath her feet had shifted, not violently, but irrevocably. The world she knew, the narrow paths she walked each day, the corners she disappeared into suddenly loosened their grip on her. That frightened her, more than any cruelty ever had. Pain was familiar. Neglect was predictable. But choice was a wild, dangerous thing. Asterisk, the days leading to the wedding passed in a strange haze. Mrs. Carter busied herself with preparations that carried no joy, only relief. Mary avoided Anna's eyes, speaking quickly when she spoke at all, as though guilt was something that might be contagious. Anna herself moved through those days quietly, folding her few belongings, mending a dress that would serve as her wedding gown, hands steady even when her heart was not. No one asked her how she felt. No one asked if she was afraid. Elijah did. They met once more before the ceremony. Outside the house, where the wind carried fewer expectations, he stood beside the fence, hands resting easily at his sides, eyes on the horizon. Asterisk, you may still change your mind, he said. I will not take you somewhere you do not wish to go. Asterisk, Anna swallowed. She had spent her whole life being carried by the wishes of others. The idea that she might choose for herself felt almost unreal. Asterisk, I've never been anywhere because I wished it, she said honestly. But I don't want to stay. That was enough for him. The wedding was small, barely a wedding at all. A preacher who looked uncomfortable standing beside a native groom. A few witnesses who came more out of curiosity than goodwill. No music, no flowers. Just vows spoken plainly, like promises made to the land rather than to the crowd. Asterisk, when Elijah took Anna's hand, his grip was warm and steady, not possessive, not hesitant, simply present. Asterisk, you are not being taken, he murmured so only she could hear. You are coming with me. Anna nodded, throat tight. When she mounted the horse behind him later that morning, Willow Creek watched as though witnessing something it would later deny ever seeing. Mary stood on the porch, pale and still. Mrs. Carter crossed herself. Eh? Child waved, confused but earnest. Elijah did not look back. The road west unfolded like a test. Long days beneath a burning sky, nights cold enough to make Anna's breath visible. They spoke little at first, learning each other's silences, the unspoken rules of shared survival. Elijah rode carefully, never pushing the horse too hard, always stopping when Anna grew weary. He shared food without comment, adjusted blankets at night without waking her, treated her presence not as a burden, but as a given. Anna noticed everything. She noticed how he scanned the land before stopping, how he positioned their camp with the wind at their backs, how he listened not just to sounds, but to absence of sound. She realized slowly that this man had survived not by force, but by attention. One night, as the fire crackled low, Anna finally asked, "Why me?" Elisha did not answer right away. He stared into the flames, where old memories flickered and faded. Because you looked at me like I was real," he said. "Not like an idea, not like a mistake." Anna felt something loosen inside her chest. The land changed as they traveled. Trees thinned, hills rose, the air grew sharper. When they finally reached the cabin, a rough structure set against open land and distant mountains, Anna felt a quiet awe settle over her. It was not beautiful, in the way towns call beauty, but it was honest, solid, waiting. Inside, she found signs of preparation that stole her breath. A shelf cleared for her things, a table scrubbed clean, a bed layered with fresh linens. You belong here," Elijah said simply. Anna had never been told that before. That night, as wind pressed against the cabin walls and the fire warmed, the room, Anna understood something profound and terrifying. She was no longer forgotten. And the West, vast and unforgiving, had become her witness. The first winter tested them both, not with sudden cruelty, but with a steady, grinding persistence that wore away at weakness and revealed truth. Snow came early in the highland west of Black Ridge, soft at first, then relentless. It blanketed the earth in white silence, turning the world into something both beautiful and unforgiving. The cabin groaned beneath the weight of it, wind slipping through cracks Elijah had not yet learnt to seal, and the nights stretched long and dark, filled with the sound of firewood popping and the distant cry of animals that did not sleep through the cold. Anna learned quickly that survival here was not dramatic. It was repetitive. It was waking before dawn to bank the fire, hands numb, breath fogging the air. It was rationing food carefully, stretching meals without ever letting Elisha see the worry in her eyes. It was learning to split wood despite blistered palms and aching shoulders, refusing to be fragile simply because the world expected her to be. Elijah never told her what to do. He showed her once, sometimes twice, then trusted her to learn. That trust, quiet and unspoken, began to stitch something new into Anna's bones. They spoke more as the days shortened. Not long speeches, not confessions offered all at once, but fragments, pieces of themselves laid carefully on the table between them, like things that might break if handled too quickly. Elijah spoke of his childhood near the river, of stories told by firelight, of a father who taught him how to read the land like scripture. He spoke too of loss of family, taken by sickness and policy, by men who believed maps mattered more than memory. He did not speak with anger. That frightened Anna more than rage ever could. His grief was settled, deep, like something buried that still shaped the ground above it. Anna spoke of invisibility, of standing in rooms where decisions were made around her as though she were furniture, of learning early that love was something rationed, not freely given. She spoke once of Mary, not with bitterness, but with an ache that surprised them both. I don't think she meant to hurt me, Anna said one night, staring into the fire. She just never learned that I could feel it. Elijah nodded slowly. Some people survive by being seen, he said. Others survive by enduring. Silence followed, thick but not uncomfortable. One night, long after the fire had burned low, Anna woke from a dream she could not remember, heart racing, breath shallow. Before she could retreat into herself, Elijah stirred. You're here, he said softly. Not a question, a statement. Anna realized then that she had never once felt unsafe beside him. Not physically, not emotionally. That realization frightened her more than loneliness ever had. Trust required vulnerability, and vulnerability had never been kind to her before. As winter loosened its grip and spring crept back into the land, something else changed. Elijah began to smile, more small smiles, fleeting, like sunlight breaking through cloud cover. Anna found herself laughing, startled by the sound of it, as if it belonged to someone else. The cabin filled slowly with evidence of a shared life. Tools hung side by side, meals planned together. A garden broken into the soil despite frost's lingering threat. It was not passion that bound them at first. It was respect. It was rhythm. It was the understanding that each day survived together was a victory neither had ever been guaranteed before. Then the pass came riding in. Anna saw the dust first, rising on the horizon like a warning. Elisha sensed it before she spoke, body going still, hand resting on the rifle by the door. 3 riders approached men from Willow Creek, though time had hardened them into something sharper, more entitled. At their center rode a man Anna recognized immediately, though she had hoped never to see him again. Mary's husband. He dismounted with a practiced sneer, eyes moving over the cabin, the land. Anna herself as though she were an object that had wandered from its proper shelf. You were given unfairly, he said, voice thick with accusation. That girl belongs back where she came from. Anna felt the old instinct rise there. Urge to shrink, to disappear, but it faltered. Elijah stepped forward, calm as stone. She belongs where she chooses. The man laughed. You think this ends here? Anna surprised herself by speaking. Her voice did not shake. I am not lost, she said, and I am not coming back. Something in her tone unsettled them. They left without bloodshed, but not without promise of trouble. That night. Anna lay awake, fear creeping back in like a familiar ache. Elijah sat beside her. I will protect you, he said. Anna reached for his hand. I know, but this time, I want to stand too. Elijah looked at her, really looked, and something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, admiration. Love that it had grown so quietly it had escaped naming. Outside. The land stretched wide and watchful. And Anna understood. Then that being chosen once was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of her strength. Summer arrived, not with gentleness, but with heat that pressed down on the land like a test of endurance. The grass dried to gold, the creek ran thinner, and the sky stretched endlessly above the cabin, vast and indifferent. Yet within that immensity, Anna felt something she had never known before: rootedness. Each morning she stepped outside and felt the earth beneath her feet as something that recognized her weight, her presence, her right to stand there. This land did not ask who she had been before. It only asked what she was willing to become. The trouble returned the way it always did in the West, uninvited and certain of its own righteousness. They came at dusk. 5 riders this time, silhouettes cutting into the dying light. Anna saw them from the garden and felt fear rise sharp and fast, but it did not hollow her out the way it once would have. Elisha stood beside her, rifle in hand, posture calm, eyes assessing distance and intent. He did not tell her to go inside. He did not place himself in front of her like a wall meant to hide weakness. Instead, he stood with her, shoulder to shoulder, as though the choice of facing the world together had already been made long ago. The men dismounted with the confidence of those who had never been told no and believed themselves immune to consequence. Mary's husband spoke again, louder this time. His words sharpened by resentment and the humiliation of having been defied by a woman he once considered insignificant. You don't belong out here, he said to Anna. You were nothing before. You're nothing now. The old words tried to find their way back into her bones. They failed. Anna stepped forward. I was nothing to you, she said evenly. That was never the same thing. Silence followed. Heavy, dangerous. Elijah's presence was steady at her side, but this moment, this declaration belonged to her. She felt it clearly. For the first time, she was not being chosen. She was choosing. The confrontation did not end with bloodshed, but it ended decisively. Elisha's voice carried authority rooted not in threat, but in certainty. The land, the lawlessness, the distance from Willow Creek, it worked in their favor. The men left knowing they would not win this ground without paying a price they were not willing to afford. When they were gone, the sun slipped fully below the horizon, and the world exhaled. Anna's hands trembled. They're not from fear, but from release. Elisha turned to her, eyes searching. You were brave, he said. Anna shook her head slowly. No, she replied. I was done being small. That night, under a sky crowded with stars, Anna and Elijah sat together on the cabin steps. The land stretched around them, quiet and vast, no longer hostile but familiar. Anna leaned against him, her head resting where she had learned it belonged. I used to think home was something other people were given, she said softly. Something you had to be invited into. Elisha wrapped an arm around her. Home is something you build, he said, and something that holds you when the world won't. Seasons turned again. The cabin grew stronger. The land responded to care. Neighbors distant, cautious, began to appear, drawn by rumors of fairness, of shared labor, of a place where a man and a woman were judged by the work of their hands rather than the names they carried. Anna found herself speaking with confidence. She did not recognize it first, giving direction, offering kindness without fear it would be taken for weakness. One evening, as the sun bled red across the hills, Anna stood alone at the edge of the property and realized something profound. She was no longer running from the girl she had been. She was honoring her. Elijah joined her, silent as always, presence solid as the land beneath them. They forgot. You once, he said. They won't again. Anna smiled not with pride, but with peace, because the forgotten girl was forgotten no longer. She had been chosen, and more importantly, she had chosen herself.